What is going on, guys? How are we doing? Is everyone well? Hope you're having a lovely Saturday morning. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me okay and see everything all right as well? We are going to start things off with BTC, okay? So, as always, we'll be taking a look at the higher time frames, migrating down to the lower time frames, and analyzing the situation from a holistic standpoint, okay? All clear? Okay, great. What's up, Ange? What's up, JJ? Alrighty, so BTC weekly, not much developed. We have tapped down into this pocket of weekly intra-demand, which we were noting last session and the sessions beforehand. Essentially that if we expect BTC to bounce, looking at the higher time frame picture off the back of this weekly local SFP, the two most plausible areas to do so are in this pocket of weekly demand in here, and then this pocket of weekly origin demand in here, okay? I'm not calling for doom and gloom at all. I'm not saying we're going to go down to the 70s and 80s by any stretch at all. I'm just analyzing this from a higher time frame perspective and saying, okay, well, these are the most plausible pockets of weekly liquidity by way of demand, okay? So we are interacting with the first at the moment, and that is basically the most pivotal zone on the chart that's of note, okay? It's this weekly pocket of intra-demand on BTC that we're now interacting with. 3-day, interesting picture here. Starting to slightly lose that 50 level on the RSI, which isn't exactly what we want to see for bulls. That being said, we've still got 1 day, 15 hours until the weekly close, which will be the 3-day as well. Down to the daily. And again, not too much to really analyze here, okay? Yes, we've lost the mid. We started drifting down. But as you guys know, higher time frame is king, okay? As long as we're within this weekly demand zone, weekly intra-demand, things are all good at the moment, okay? This is a very plausible bounce point area. And we need to start looking at the lower time frames for clues as to whether that's going to occur. Get the likes up? Yeah. Preach, Ange. Preach. Hit those likes, my friends. So 12-hour here, and talking about those sort of lower time frame clues, okay? So we're talking about the lower time frame clues that could give us some semblance of an idea as to whether we will sort of reverse in this area and start challenging the highs again, okay? So 12-hour, nice picture on the AO, okay? Nice picture here. So we've got higher lows on the AO as price makes lower lows, right? So we have an AO divergence against price. Price making lower lows with a second leg. The awesome oscillator making higher lows. We have this sort of diverging structure here, which is promising. It's good. It's a great start. Is it particularly actionable? Not really from a trading perspective, okay? So when we're looking at the awesome oscillator, it's more so from a, how can I put this? A standpoint of giving directional clues as to the market's intent. Useful from a spot perspective, for sure. Useful from a dollar cost average perspective. not particularly useful in isolation from a trading perspective. Okay. What's up, Jacob? Nice to see you here, and no worries at all. Always grinding, my friend. Always grinding. The markets never sleep, and yeah, always got my eyes on it, as you know. So anyway, what we really want in terms of actioning trades is agreement between the RSI and the Awesome Oscillator. Okay. So, if you aren't already familiar with the way that I approach my trading, it is basically it's a blend between systematization and discretion. Okay, so you guys may have seen this before. This is my gatekeeping system, right? So if we go into here, this is basically my system. Okay, so this keeps me systematic, right? I've created this workflow which essentially has me run through these flashcards. Okay, so I'll say I'm trading the regular system, not a breakout system. I'm trading this regular system 90% of the time. Breakouts are very rare. Okay, we have to be in incredibly trending markets to the upside or the downside for it to be a breakout. But we're trading the regular system. Is a trade based on a sweeps, supply, demand, or deviation? Let's say it is. So on and so forth. And then you can see here pretty soon into this checklist, you have a well-structured double divergence across the RSI and the Awesome Oscillator on at least the 30-minute plus. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this because this system keeps me in check in terms of, you know, if I was looking at this and going, okay, great, weekly intra-demand looking hot, my gut's telling me that BTC is going to push higher from here, but I've only got the divergence present on the Awesome Oscillator. Okay, if it's not present on the RSI, which it isn't here, then it's a no trade from me. Okay, so it's a process of analyzing, and it's a process of saying, okay, cool, well, we're getting the signs from the AO, but we still have to drift down to lower time frames if we're thinking about actioning any positions, because we don't have a valid trigger on the 12-hour here. 10-hour, also nice diverging structure on the AO. Okay. 8, the same, right? Kind of got this triple hump structure now here. Right, 1, 2, 3 on the AO. That's always very pleasant, very appetizing. That's what you want to see. It's not the cleanest of triple humps for sure, because we're getting quite close to resetting the AO here. That being said, it's still something to note. 4-hour, nothing. Okay, nothing across the oscillators. Again, you can see us drift down into weekly demand here, but nothing particularly of note or actionable. Now the hourly starts to get a bit more interesting. Okay, a bit more interesting on the hourly. AO creeping up, as you can see here. Creeping up. Right, kind of got this curling structure on the AO. And this is a nice divergence here on the hourly. Okay, even though it's slightly janky, it's slightly skewed, slightly spiky, it is still a clear divergence. And you can see how all of these touch points, if we zoom in a bit, all of these touch points basically hold this line. Okay, so it's basically like a trend line on the RSI divergence, each respecting the line pretty much to the T. Okay, which give us a fairly nice divergent structure on the RSI. Okay, as price comes down and does this. So lower lows on price, higher lows on the oscillators. And unlike the 12-hour, okay, now we have that double divergence confirmation. We have agreement between the RSI and the Awesome Oscillator. Okay, so now we're looking at stuff which is slightly more actionable, right, slightly more promising. We have the sort of the notion of the weekly demand zone. Then we have the headwinds of the 12-hour, 8-hour, 6-hour Awesome Oscillator. And then we also have this hourly double divergence structure on BTC as well. Okay, Am I in position? No, I'm not. I'm not taking this here, despite things looking fairly good, fairly promising. But if you would like to, that's your call entirely, okay? By the way, as I'm going through these concepts and analysis, guys, please feel free to shoot any questions in the chat box and I'll be sure to answer them as soon as I can. Realistically, where do you see Bitcoin going in September? Realistically, I have no fucking idea, Jacob. That's the truth. Okay, I have no idea whatsoever what's going to happen in September, nor October, nor November, nor for the rest of the year. Okay, I don't ever try and rub the crystal ball. It's not something that I like to do. It's not where my strengths lie. Realistically, I don't think it's where many people's strengths lie. The whole game on Twitter or social media of rubbing that ball and coming back to it and saying that I got that one right is usually just a process of clout farming, right? Throw 1,000 darts, one of them will hit the bullseye, right? Then you just repost that and that's how it goes, okay? As traders, we shouldn't really be in the nature of predicting things too much, instead more reacting, okay? So we're waiting for top tier gold star setups to present themselves. At which point we enter into the market, look for sensible take profit points, place appropriate stop losses, and stay stringent in that regard. Okay, that's all we want to do there. That's all we want to do. Hope that makes sense. ETH. Okay, so let's take it the weekly down. Right, so last week's stream, we were putting in this SFP here. Okay. I would say slight cause for concern, right? Taking out all-time highs here, number one. Number two, we've moved up with great speed, okay? So if you've gone through my trading course, there'll be a fairly esoteric video in there, the most esoteric video out of the lot, which is basically talking about the speed of price and the dynamics of speed. Now, this is a concept which is seldom spoken about in the trading education space, and I think it's a crying shame that it is, to be honest, because it's so key, it's so pivotal in understanding whether we get a continuation on price or reversals. And essentially it's a sharp move, okay? And if it's a sharp move, if you think about it in terms of energy points, it's used up all its energy points by the time it gets to the point of resistance, and it has to cool off at that point to then sort of make a feasible breakout occur. So this consolidation, this correction on ETH is by no means a bad thing, okay? We've stretched up from pretty much oversold all the way to overbought here on the weekly. By my book, it's very healthy, it's very good. If we get some sort of bracketing price action here on ETH, okay, a few weeks of it even would be good, would be healthy, okay, would be something that I'd like to see. You can see that already sort of on the 3-day here. As we spoke about last stream, invalidated divergence, fine, good news for bulls. Also no agreement on the awesome oscillator. But what we did have, of course, is heavy overextension. Okay, the RSI pushing here into the overbought region on the 3-day. As we take out all-time highs, not really what we want to be seeing. Okay, so as this 3-day, the daily, etc., start to drift down to this 50 level and start treating it as a support level here, resetting those higher time frame oscillators, it's exactly what we want to see for bullish continuation on ETH. There we go on the daily. Okay, already starting to look super healthy here. That reset, okay, that holding of the 50 level, see here, 50 level, pretty much to the T, guys. Okay, there's hardly any deviation from the midpoint here, using it as support. So what we really want to see at this point is that mid to continue to hold if we are to get a push on the daily time frame. Okay, If we lose it, then we're looking at that sort of longer consolidation on the weekly, which is also fine. Okay, that's also very healthy. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Okay, the good news is that on the higher time frames, we have this 3-day buffer, this 3-day zone of intra-demand, very akin to the weekly demand on BTC, if you recall. Okay, similar structure. And we also have this higher time frame SR level that we breached recently as well. Okay, so we hold between these levels, bracketing, bouncing at either this higher time frame support or back into this level here, or indeed just a push off the back of the daily resetting itself. Okay, all of these are feasible outcomes. Okay, and the fact that the daily has reset itself is sort of the bare minimum that we'd like to see in terms of the higher time frame resets and price cooling off. But it could push from here, and it could be the start of something pretty glorious on ETH as well, as we challenge the highs, move into price discovery, etc., etc. Now, if the daily hadn't reset itself at all, okay, then it still would be very much a cause for concern. But in this area, triple taps to the mid here, still looking relatively healthy. So as we drift down to the lower time frames, we can see on the hourly, essentially what we did last night was take out this low here. So took out this low here. That being said, of course, it's not the final absolute low. Okay, there's still other lows that we could stretch for. We have double stacked lows here, right, around the 4.2s. And then we also have these lows here, which are the sort of final independent lows at the 4s. Okay, so as to whether we see a reversal off the back of this, it would basically occur off the back of this, both this divergence here on the hourly, right? So you can see price making those higher lows. The oscillators, sorry, making higher lows as price makes lower lows. Now, in concert with this, we have some pretty decent delta dynamics as well. Okay, so as you can see, a pretty substantial collection of aggregated negative delta here. For those that aren't familiar with what this is, these are my sort of holy grail templates in terms of the positioning of larger entities in the markets and the way in which they intend to move price. Okay, so basically the larger, more influential market participants operate in limit form. They cannot operate in market form because their size is too large. Okay, so by virtue of this, delta shows us the interaction between market and limit orders. Okay, as we get market selling by the smaller market participants, by the apes, retail, whoever it is, that market selling then gets absorbed by limit orders, and when that occurs, we basically produce and print negative delta, and vice versa for positive. Okay, so what we want to be seeing in this area is some good negative delta. Okay, and we can see that here. But also bear in mind that delta gives us deeper clues as to the market's intention. Okay, essentially what we have here is a pretty consistent pocket and cluster of negative delta. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we've got these like sort of 6 small clusters of negative delta here, where market selling has occurred. It's done so into limit bids. It's created that sort of negative delta by means of absorption. But at this sort of level here, this much delta, we do kind of want to see price push. Okay, if price doesn't push from here off the back of this sort of hourly divergence and all of this delta, and instead of this delta having effect, this delta has effect, okay, then it's very telling as to price's intent and its sort of direction, okay, because in strong in strong trends, in strong uptrends, we need very little in the way of negative delta to push price. In strong downtrends, we need very little in the way of positive delta to push price downwards. Okay. So when I talk about delta dynamics, yes, we're looking healthy from a current standpoint, but we need to also see that follow through. It's not just about the delta printing, it's about seeing that follow through on price as well. If we don't, then it gives us clues as to who's in control in the market. Okay. Essentially, if we don't see any follow through to the upside in this sort of local area for ETH, then it's telling of the strength of the market. Okay. And in short, not a great sign for bulls, because this sort of amount of cumulative negative delta should really be able to push price higher. If we are still in a raging uptrend and that SFP on the weekly higher time frame picture ETH isn't going to nuke us or have great effect. I hope that makes sense. So onto the alts, right? Onto the alts. Okay, so if you're not aware with the way that I approach my altcoin scanning, and apologies for people that have heard this over and over like a broken record, I do just need to sort of run through it really quickly. I have a weekly strength watch list. Okay, so this is just a handful of altcoins, which are the strongest alts on the weekly timeframes. Okay, so I run through my larger list every week with my group, and we try and pick out ones that are looking the strongest on the weekly time frame, condense that into a shorthand list of a handful of altcoins here, which then I don't look at the weeklies anymore. I'm not even looking at the dailies. I'm looking at the 12-hour, 4-hour, 1-hour, 30-minute, etc., etc. Okay. So what this does is it makes me hone in on a basket of higher probability long options. Probably the best way to phrase it. Okay, a basket of higher probability long options. I only really want to be taking longs in this market because I try to align with the trend as much as possible. I'm very happy to skip out on the short side. I do not need to bat both ways. That's not something I'm interested in, to be honest. I'd rather stay stringent, align with the markets and size into positions as opposed to trying to fade the trend. And this method of scanning and sort of approaching the markets has been hugely beneficial to everything. My P&L, my performance, my appetite to trade as well. You know, I've started enjoying it a lot more. It's a lot more hands-off. I know exactly what's going on in the market, so I feel much more in control. And it's something that I highly, highly recommend, not just for uptrends, right? Also for bear markets and downtrends. Okay, so we'll definitely be focusing on a weekly weakness watch list as and when the time comes. For now, focusing on weekly strength, hoping that we start to get some sort of strong impulses on these markets, and that sort of trickle down effect occurs, which we're starting to see in some effect already. Okay, BTC went first on the higher time frames, then ETH. Now we've seen ETH go. We want Sol, the other majors, to go, and so on and so forth, down to the mids, down to the lows, etc. Okay, so let's run through some of the alts here. We can do a bit of a scan. Start with the 12 hours. And yeah, as always, if you guys have any questions, do let me know. BNB, infinitely healthy, as always. I mean, really can't get a stronger market than this at the moment. You can see that interaction with the 12-hour here, just on the RSI midpoint. Super strong, just holding that mid, looking for any reason to push away and impulse higher yet again. Feels like it's just waiting for the green light from BTC and ETH. Again, I've got alerts down at these stacked lows. Okay, for those that don't know what stacked lows are, they are multiple lows that are closely spaced together, and basically these make for good areas of probable liquidity buildups. Okay, so what we're looking for is either speed to take out these levels, or a divergence, or both, to give us some sort of plausible and sensible long opportunities where we've waited and been patient for them. Okay, not FOMOing, not chasing moves, not just moving into markets willy-nilly because they look good, quote unquote. Okay, we still have to stay systematic, stay disciplined, and wait for good opportunities. Okay. B, huge push, huge push. A raging market, really is. I haven't been able to get in on this market. I've kind of been frozen out despite acknowledging how strong it is. One of the members of the group pulled something like this recently. Something like this. And I was like, Jesus, you're outperforming me. Outperforming me. But yeah, very, very strong market indeed. And yeah, looking for potential triggers. But there's nothing to play from an upside perspective, i.e. Horizontal or diagonal breakouts. The only thing we can do is wait patiently for perhaps some lows to be swept. And if that's not the case, then there's no real trigger by my book. Okay. And if that's the case, then that's also fine. I don't mind skipping out on markets. I don't mind watching markets run without me. I've been in the game long enough to completely temper any sort of FOMO in that regard. You learn after, through the years that it doesn't matter. There's always a train tomorrow to catch, right? Or the next day, or the next day. If you don't catch this one, it's no big deal, right? No great car smash or train wreck. It's fine. Okay, there will be new opportunities. And even if markets run without me these days, it's basically the next video on the channel, full form video, is called Dopamine to Discipline. Okay, and it's talking about how, as a trader in my sort of nascent years, it was completely dopamine driven. Now it's completely discipline driven. And when I skip positions, then I'm just further increasing that discipline, further honing in on that skill, that mindset. And that's something that I'm very, very happy to do, very proud of where I've got to in terms of my discipline, especially considering where I was as an early trader. It's a huge advancement, a very, very different person, at the trading desk. So Crow, recent addition to the weekly strength watch list. Yeah, we had this pocket of 1-2 hour intra-demand here. Was waiting for some sort of trigger. Did we get anything? Not really, right? Not really. The only thing here was an hourly AO divergence. Okay. So just price, only just. Okay. We've only just, when I say only just, we've only just got these lower lows on price. And then we have this AO divergence here. Now, something I'm always talking to members of my group about is it's how discretion plays a role in trading, okay? And the main way I can sort of explain this is, yes, you have your system, okay? You have this in place. These are sort of your safety guards, okay? These keep you in check. But to have that sort of level of discretion, which you can only garner from first-hand experience, is critical because it shows you when to bend the rules and when not to bend the rules, okay? If you stay fully systematic, right, and you're just taking systematic triggers, I hate to say it, but it won't be that easy, right? It's just not that easy. Over the years, you realize that there has to be discretion involved to optimize your trading performance. Okay. What do I mean by that in context to Crow? Well, perhaps I should have taken this trade purely off the back of this AO divergence. Okay, so I'd be going through my gatekeeping. That gate would have kept me out because I don't have a double divergence across the RSI and the awesome oscillator. But given the context, right, this is a raging market. Okay, number one. Number two, we are into a very clean pocket of intra-demand here. Right, so even if we take it from the 2-hour bodies, that, right, so super clean. Number three, the AO divergence is actually very severe. Okay, so this angle here is very severe. So perhaps I should have bent my rules, right, and added that sort of discretionary element into this trade, and said that, okay, cool, we don't have that sort of agreement on the RSI and the awesome oscillator, but my gut is telling me that I should bend the rules in this area. And that's why, this, even just sort of illustrating and exemplifying this, running through this right now, will probably shine light, and it may be a light bulb moment to some of you as to why trading is so difficult. Okay, it's not fully systematic. It can't be fully systematic unless you are a high frequency trader or scalper. As swing traders, position traders, intraday traders, and everything else outside of those realms, an element of discretion is necessary, in my opinion, especially in trending markets. Okay, in less trending markets, in bracketing range bound environments, you can keep that stringency super high because you don't have that directional conviction. That's more of a sitting on your hands sort of time and only entering when multiple pieces of confluence align, and at that point you are not bending or stretching your rules at all. Okay, you're just waiting for either everything to align and high confluence setups to present themselves, or for the sort of market regime to transition into something more directional. Deep, still just got alerts at these lows, right? Just alerts down at these lows. Again, just being super patient, right? There's this sort of semi-okay trend line on the daily. What I'd like to see is a third touch point to form, something like this. Then consolidation. Then that's a potential trigger to the upside. Until then, we're just looking at downside triggers, okay? ETH. Just looking at this 12-hour picture on ETH, right? This is just super healthy. This is exactly what I want to see. If we'd basically just done this and had this candle here, and then this mini sort of consolidation here, and then just ripped up another green candle from there, I would be very worried. I would be very, very worried, because then the more plausible thing to occur is price just ranges here, closes back in with another strong candle that sort of fills in the void of this sharp candle here. And at this point, we're locking in a deviation on the higher time frames, and that is not what we want to see for ETH, for crypto bulls, to be honest. Altcoin, a great example of patience, waiting for your alerts to hit. Okay, so here I've been very, very patient, waiting for this final low to get hit on Altcoin. Okay, not looking for any of these, because one of my rules, as you probably well know, is I'm looking to operate my swing failure sweep trades at the absolute independent final high. Okay, I'm not looking to take anything before that. If there's other highs, highs or lows when I'm playing sweeps that it can stretch for, then I'm not interested. Again, just talking about stringency, patience, discipline, etc. H bar. Okay, so now we're starting to look at some interesting markets. Again, double stacked lows. Okay, so you can see these two lows stacked very closely together. In fact, it's kind of triple stacked lows if you include this low here as well. Okay, so starting to look very appealing. Okay, down to the 4 hour. Do we have anything actionable? Not really. What about the 2? Okay, so the 2's starting to get slightly interesting. Right, so we have semblances of the beginning of divergences here. So what we'd like to see, really, is price to continue a bit lower. Something like this. We keep grinding down on price, okay? Put higher lows in here on the RSI. The awesome oscillator, as you can see, is already starting to put in that sort of higher low structure already. Okay, so keep that going. Creep up, curl back over on the AO. Lower lows on price. Then push up, reclaim all of these stacked lows and give us a strong long position. Okay. So there's 2 ways you can play this. Right, so you can either take this on the sort of divergence confirmation candle, the lock-in of the div. But if you're taking that, then it is higher risk. Please be aware that it is higher risk, because essentially what you're doing is you're taking, let's say it's here or something, you're taking a position in what I call no man's land. Okay, no man's land means that you're taking that position before the sort of sweep in SFP has taken place. Right, because we haven't deviated, reclaimed levels and locked ourselves back inside or above the levels that were lost. Instead, you're just taking a divergence confirmation, which, by the way, is fine. Okay, so in the right markets, you can net some really good entries, right, and lock in some much tighter R's, higher R plays, and even if you start building into those, right, you can still increase your R significantly. And it's something that I've been known to do. If you go through a lot of my past trade execution videos, this is the sort of aggressive style that I am known for. But again, it's about context. It's about choosing the right markets. Okay, and again, that comes down to first-hand experience, knowing when to sort of do so, listening to your guts and intuition, and sort of taking that guide. Okay. Regardless of whether you take it after the confirmation and lock in, sort of much past the divergence or not, interesting market to keep eyes on for sure. I'm just going to add this to the green list. Hype. Swing failed up here. Okay, so swept the highs, coming back down, correcting. It's still a very, very strong market. Okay, so still very strong, still very, very high directional conviction on hype. It's just about looking for entries. Hype is 90% of my spot holdings in from 19s. You go back through live streams, you'll see me doing all of that in real time. But from a trading perspective, not really much here, not really too much. Okay, so if we go, where is this? 12 hour. Okay, so we have a really nice pocket of origin demand here on the 12 hour. If we were to get something like this, okay, so speed into this demand zone here, or a divergence into this demand zone. Doesn't have to be a 12-hour divergence. It could be an hourly, like the rest of the markets we've looked at, or a 2-hour, or even perhaps a 30-minute, but nothing lower than that. Then we could have a nice opportunity to get in on this trend and sort of ride it back from a lower standpoint, knowing that we have this sort of resistance level up here, and we've got a ride early to a potential breakout play here. Okay, so let's say price comes up, challenges the highs, consolidates at the highs, and then starts moving up. Instead of taking a position here, right, and taking this sort of breakout trade, we're taking it down here, right, knowing what the sort of upside of the chart looks like. Okay, so again, I'm much more tempted to sort of move in on markets in terms of downside triggers if I know there is a potential upside trigger on the cards, okay? And hype is one of those markets. IP, not letting anyone in. Okay, so stack close here, not letting anyone in at all, right? Nothing in terms of an upside trigger here. No trades, nothing to action, okay? Same sort of story on Kaya. We have a very nice independent low here, right? It's just about whether price comes down to take that out or not. If not, nothing really in the way of upside triggers. Link, looks like we might have a lower time frame SFP here, right? So taking out this low here, just, right? And you can see the AO structure as we do so. Again, just talking about that sort of curling over on the AO, right? As price grinds down and takes out that low. MNT. It's a weekly level here on MNT, if I'm correct, yeah. What about 3-day? No. So we've got a lovely weekly level to work with here on MNT. And you can see, similar to ETH really, right? So we've had that sort of scorch up right from the lows. Everyone thinks it's dead, everyone's forgotten about it. Back to all-time highs within weeks, realistically. So really what we want to see is some sort of consolidation in this area to give us that sort of more confidence in a breakout to the upside on the higher time frames. Daily, looking healthy, right? Super healthy. Again, very, very akin to ETH here in terms of its general structure, way that the daily is interacting with the midpoint here. Again, there's just no real way to sort of responsibly enter into MNT. This is one of those ones where the gut is like, okay, cool, this is raging. I feel like it's going to go up, but the system has to keep you in check. Okay, so this is where you don't let the sort of gut and discretion let you sway from your system and your rule book too much. Okay, this is where you should just sort of lean into the system. You need to have a technical trigger for entry. Otherwise, you're just shooting from the hip in the dark, essentially. That's not what we do as traders. We are not gamblers. We're professionals with systems in place and elements of discretion we can pepper in as well as that, okay? So double stack lows here into 2-hour demand, right? That's what I'm after. This is what I want. Speed, divergence, or both, right? Give the reclaim. Structure reclaim, good to go. Pendle. You know what, actually, I've got this zone here not marked out. This is a nice pocket of origin demand, or in fact, I'd rather call this a market structure defense zone, aka MSDZ. When the zones aren't structurally correct enough to call them supply or demand, then I normally put them in the category of an MSDZ. Regardless, still potential bounce points for Pendle. And this is really where we'd like to see, essentially the MSDZ is where you see market structure defended. Okay, so put in that sort of higher low here and then move higher. So again, it's a zone where we're looking for speed into it, divergences, or both. Okay, very simple stuff. It's the same playbook over and over again. Pengu, again, it's a matter of patience, just a matter of patience. Okay, so final low here. Again, I'm not interested in taking this. Not going to be taking this, as appealing as it may seem. We've even got a very lovely structure on the AO here. But we also have another low that price could stretch for in this area here, okay? As a result, it's a patience game. It's about keeping that stringency high. If we get price to come down and take out that final independent low, then great. If we don't, we simply skip it and wait for the next, okay? Sol deviated this high here, started closing back underneath. See how we're looking on the higher time frames. You can see it sort of retesting the underside there. And again, on the hourly, retesting the underside of that resistance level. And again, retesting the underside of the mid here on the RSI. Okay, so it goes without saying. For bullish continuation, we're looking for a reclaim of this level, reclaim of the mid on the hourly, and that would be enough to sort of give us a push up to the upside. If not, there are multiple stack lows here. Okay, multiple stack lows. As you can note, my low is not at the first, it's always at the last, okay? SPX. Yeah, this only just still deserves to be in this watch list. It's been pretty poor performer over the last month or so. What's up, KR? How you doing? 12 hour, starting to see a triple hump on the AO. Okay, so that's fairly promising. 4 hour, nothing really to action. 2 hour, again, more of the same. The only thing that's particularly promising here is these triple hump structure on the awesome oscillator, okay? But in terms of left side price action, i.e. what zones, levels, or areas to the left that you can action these trades into, this is much of a whole bunch of nothing for me, right? This is just into nothing of substance, okay? So yes, we can set an alert at this low, but that's basically the only point at which we could start sort of looking at long positions, if we even want to, okay? As you guys know, I focus on strong markets, longing strength, shorting weakness, and as I said, this only just still deserves a spot in the watch list. So it would have to be a very tasty setup, let's put it that way. Sui taking out stack lows here. I was looking at this last night. The only thing here was this hourly divergence, right? Sort of spiked div on the hourly. Do we have AO confluence? No. Okay. Syrup starting to perk up, right? Starting to look strong here. Again, just one of those ones where there's no trigger to the downside, right? This low, the alert did not quite go off. Okay, so the eyes were not on this market for a reversal, and good job too, right? Again, there'd be no technical trigger unless that low was taken, so that's all good. What about this? Yeah, maybe the start of a potential trend line here. Perhaps, but only 2 touch points on the bodies on the 12 hour. We could take the daily and do this. Okay. But what we'd need to see is a third touch point to form, and then the attack, the consolidation, and the burst up. okay? So we're a ways off that occurring. And the reason we need to see the third form is because, as you've just noted, right, I had one trend line for the daily, this one, taking the 2 touch points, bodies and bodies, and then another completely different one for the 12-hour. Okay, look here, completely different angle, completely different line. This is the danger in trend lines, okay, and this is why they become particularly subjective. And the way to take that subjectivity out of your trading and make it more objective is to use a third touch point, because with a third, there is no skewing of lines, okay? It becomes fixed, right? If we move here and we have that interaction, then it gives the daily line credence, okay? If we move here and have that interaction, like so, it gives the 12-hour line credence, okay? So the third touch point is very important. Like, do not skip it. Unless we are in very, very rare conditions of highly trending markets and you have good experience in bending rules and dipping out of your system based on discretion. What's up, Dexio? How you doing? TRX, right? Taking out this low here. Let's see if we have anything here to work. 4 hours giving us this sort of very clean arc. Okay, so this clean diverging structure here. Textbook, but we've come too far and too close to the midpoint here. So for me, anything between the 55 and the 45 level is a technical reset, and you can see that it starts to reset itself there. So in terms of actioning a trade, very difficult. Okay, there's no agreement here on the awesome oscillator. These peaks aren't even overextended on the RSI. Very difficult. That being said, TRX is just an absolute monster and it's likely to run from here. Okay, so it just becomes a case again of how much do you bend your rules, how much do you drop your stringency based on the trend. Okay, we have equal lows here, which makes it a very, very plausible and appetizing point in the market in terms of left side price action to enter the market. But we just don't have very much of a trigger. Okay, so it then becomes a point of how much do we drop our guard, how much do we drop our stringency just to get in on this market. Wow, look at this. Look at this. Whole market been nuking. That's just going for it, right? Just going for it. Would love to see this third tap get put in place and then go for this. This would be ideal. Really ideal. Let's see. Let's hope that this overextension can make that happen. If not, then I may be willing, if price hangs around here for considerable time and we start to get some really nice pictures in terms of RSI resets, holding that 50 level across multiple timeframes, then I may be willing to take 2 taps on this before a breakout trade, consolidation to the upside, etc. The reason I'm happy to do this and not for the diagonal is because this is more objective, right? Flat lines, horizontal lines, they are much more objective than diagonals. Okay, so in some cases, in some markets, depending on the market context and the picture of the RSIs at the time, may be willing to take the doubles instead of the triples. Okay. XTC, nothing here. Nothing. No triggers. Right. This sweep occurred with no triggers, so no trade was taken, broken down, a potential reclaim perhaps, but still, it's not going to be enough in my books. Excellent. One of the most interesting markets, okay, at the moment. Right, and I'll just take you down to the 2 hour here, I believe. So this is what we would love to see. So firstly, on the 12 hour or the 4 hour even, you can see that we have this very clean, extremely isolated independent low, right? There's no subjectivity about this, right? Objectively, this is the low, right? If we're going to have the bouncy SFP trade, it's here, right? It's here. The question is, Does it occur, or do we break down and fill in the sufficiency? And if it does occur, how much damage and fuckery is it going to put in place? Okay. So, as I said last stream, I'm starting to talk about my trades less and less. I won't be doing a sort of trade to trade recap anymore, as I feel like it's been affecting my performance for the worse. But from this sort of, I'm happy to do it once in a while if it sort of lends a lot of educational value. Okay, and I can say in this area I'm long on XLM. You can see that I'm long with a fairly wide stop. Yeah, okay. So the trigger for this trade was this here. Right, this 30-minute diverging structure across both the awesome oscillator and the divergence. Okay, here. Like so. Again, I don't even want to use a straight line there. This is more of a curling AO situation again. As price comes down here, okay? So, started moving into it here. Am I in for full position? No, not yet. What I like to do in these areas, right, is start building. So I build with a sensible stop placement, right? And this is just judged by eye, right? So 30-minute time frame was the initial time frame for installation, and you can see that on the 30-minute I have a good area of room to build here. Okay, now if we go up slightly to the local higher time frames here, the hourly, okay, we can see again we have strong signals here on the awesome oscillator as price grinds down, a very severe diverging structure here on the AO, okay, as price sort of rounds off here. So also good. Do I add? No. Okay, so I saw this when I woke up this morning. Have I added to the position yet? No. I'm happy for what I'm in for, and there's no reason to add here. Okay, so a reason to add could be something like this, right? So hourly reclaim, structure reclaim, right? Get the bounce, get the retest, start moving away. At that point, what I may do is something like this. Okay, so size into this position, right? And tighten up my stop here. Okay, so at that point, I don't really need any more room to build because the reclaim's taken place. So it's this sort of dynamic, evolving R situation where you're moving your stop, moving your entry progressively as things sort of develop. At the beginning of the trade, it's about survival. Okay, so at the beginning of the trade, it's purely about survival. You want that wider stop to either take the sort of hourly reclaim or the 2-hour potential divergence that's forming here. Okay, so if we look at this here, could we see something like this occur? Absolutely. Right, this is on the cards still. There's nothing to say that this won't occur. Will I survive it? If it does, hopefully, if it's not too severe and doesn't do this and does this, then sure, okay. At that point, I can average down, right? I can start hitting max risk on this trade. Why can I start sizing in and add max? Because if I go to the slightly higher time frames, right, there's no potential divergence here. There's no potential divergence here, right? So that would be the sort of final installment, the final play, unless I was wanting to take partial on the 2-hour div lock-in and then wait for more confirmation, i.e. the reclaim. Again, I wouldn't even need to take anything 2-hour if I didn't want to. Okay, so again, that's also an option for you guys. If you're looking at positions like this, you can say, I'm in for my full installment in no man's land, i.e. past low, and I have to wait for a reclaim and structure reclaim for me to size into this position. Okay, also very valid. Very sensible, and you're waiting for more confirmation, which is great. XMR, nothing to note. Okay, still pushing away from this 12-hour divergence here. Nothing actionable. XRP, okay. Now we're starting to look pretty tasty here. XRP and XLM move in unison, as I'm sure you're aware. If you've been around long enough, you'll know that. Again, another very tasty, independent, isolated low. If XRP does push down, then we're likely looking at that 2-hour divergence structure on XLM, and we'd have to analyze XRP to see if there's a separate trade that we can take on this market as well. Would love to, right? Would love to get long here. Again, just waiting for an alert here. Zora into 12-hour origin demand, daily origin demand. Do we have anything on the lower time frames? Not really. Okay, not really. Hourly div, yeah. Okay, so we'll see the play out on this as well. Can you take a look into BERT? Not giving me an entry, just vertical accumulation. I would never give you an entry, my friend. That's not what we do here, but I can take a look for you. All right, pop down, weekly. Not much to note, right? Reclaimed the mid here. 3-day, overextended. Daily, divergence. On the RSI, no double divergence. 12-hour, fairly healthy here. Okay, but you can see the area is starting to curl. If we go down to these lower time frames, you'll see it curl over even more so here. Okay. It's nothing in terms of entries. This is just completely frozen you out of anything in terms of a semblance of a long position. Okay. If you want to start trading the lower time frames, I suppose this is the low you're looking at. There's nothing in the way of demand, so you're just looking at an SFP. Potentially setting that, yeah. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you all. I hope you garnered some good value and information from this live stream. I'm locking in a weekly slot now, 10:30 every Saturday morning, unless life or things change. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. And